Hey guys, Toboloco here. Welcome to the channel and welcome to a slightly different video. Today we're going to be rating the World Cup games that I've played. Now, I know there's tons of FIFA tournament games out there. There's loads, right? Some of them I played, some of them I haven't played. So a lot of people ask me, which one is your favorite? Which one is the best one you've played? And I figured, instead of like just individually telling people and maybe like getting like different answers from me, I'll just do a video saying which ones are the best and giving my reasons for it. And yeah, hopefully I can do it in a quick and concise manner, I guess. I'm hoping I won't take too long with this video. I don't want it to be massive. So I'm going to start with Euro 2004. I know that there are games for 1998 FIFA World Cup and 2002 World Cup, but I cannot individually rate those games as I've never played them before. Even though I grew up in the 90s and obviously the early 2000s, I never played those games. Those two games, FIFA 98, well, I can't really rate it that much, but I mean, it looks pretty good from the footage I've seen on YouTube. It looks alright. You know, that's all I can really say on the game. Again, I can't really comment on how the game feels or anything like that. But if I'm looking at it from face value, it does look cool, and hopefully one day I'll play it. But again, I cannot rate it because I've never played it. Same goes for 2002 FIFA World Cup. Now, I believe that 2002 FIFA World Cup did have the tournament mode, and it does look good from what I'm seeing. It looks like it has a good atmosphere. It looks like it's pretty decent for the time. I know that this game came out on the original Xbox, but unfortunately I do have a copy of it, but it doesn't work on my 360, so I cannot play it. So unfortunately, that's two games that I cannot rate in this one. So if anybody can tell me their experiences with those two games, if you've played them, then I'd love to know. But yeah, we're going to start off in Euro 2004. Euro 2004 is, well, I mean, I didn't play it at the time of release. I played it like sort of 20 years later, sort of thing, when I started doing YouTube. 2004 is not too bad. I'd say the gameplay is a little bit limited, like especially on the harder difficulties. The gameplay can be a bit janky, but then again, I think that's just the era that these FIFA games have. Remember, the older FIFAs tend to be a little bit like you're locked to a grid, and that's going to be a theme all the way up until maybe like, you know, 2010, 2014 sort of thing. But yeah, no, 2004 is fun to play. I would say it is quite difficult on even like the medium difficulties, like professional. World class is quite hard as well on that game, as it should be. You know, these difficulties should be hard, but most of the time when I play my runs, I struggle to score and I struggle to get through on goal. It's always like the final third, and then the players will just tackle you. They'll just build a wall and then they'll just tackle you no matter what you do. So I guess that is sort of like a plus and a negative point for the game. Going into the graphics aren't too bad. A lot of the licensed players and the licensed teams that are on the game are pretty good. They look pretty good for the time. You know, not too bad for what a PlayStation 2 game or early Xbox game can look like. The crowd is 2D. So there's not really much atmosphere there. The sounds are pretty good for the time. There's no like real distinct chants or anything like that, which is kind of a bummer. But again, 2004. One of the few good things the game does offer is that I believe it was the first time that it was a full qualifying experience on a tournament game. I believe 2002 didn't have that. It only starts off in the group stage of the World Cup, so 2004 was the first game to do it. And also 2004 has all the teams that existed back in 2004 for you to play as. I think that's pretty cool for a game like that to have all those teams. I mean, it would be pretty lame if it only had like what, the 16 teams that qualified for the Euros or something. Other than that though, I think it's quite a basic game. It doesn't really offer much more than that other than kickoff and the sort of Euro mode. So if I'm gonna rate that game, I think I'm gonna put it in a 5 out of 10. For the time, I'm going to be generous. I was going to put it a 4 out of 10, but I'll be generous and put it as a 5 out of 10 just because of the era it came out in. It's just average for me. Like, the gameplay is not special, but I do appreciate it, and I do appreciate that it has a full qualifying mode. It is challenging, and sometimes that challenge can be a little bit too much, especially when you're playing as bigger nations and you can't score. I think that's quite frustrating, but then again, that might be a skill issue on my part, so 5 out of 10. Alright, then moving on to FIFA 2006 World Cup. Now, I'm well aware there's actually 2 games of this, and there's actually another game that came prior to that 2006 game, Road to the FIFA World Cup. Now, Road to FIFA World Cup, I'm not going to include it in this list, A, because I haven't played it, and B, it's so similar to FIFA 2006, it's pointless. I'm going to skip that and go to 2006 World Cup. Now, I will review it on the Xbox 360, but I will draw a few comparisons to the PlayStation 2 version. So 2006 FIFA World Cup, I think this was the first time that a World Cup game came out on both generations of console. The PlayStation 2 version for me is slightly better in terms of gameplay, because I feel that the gameplay was built for those consoles. When it came out on Xbox 360, I felt like it was rushed, and there are clear signs that it was rushed on the Xbox 360. So for example, when you do a substitution, the player will walk off and it'll have his little name card on there, and then the little face on the Xbox 360 will be in PlayStation graphics, which is just like, really? You couldn't even update it to look like how it is in game currently? The obvious difference between the 2 games is the graphics. The Xbox 360 version has far superior graphics to the PlayStation 2 version. However, I feel like the PlayStation 2 version has that charm. I still think it looks pretty good, but obviously the Xbox 360 version has better graphics and can process more that's going on the pitch. You've got like confetti coming from the stands, and you've got balloons coming from the stands, beach balls as well, flags, like massive flags and tifos and stuff like that. I think that's crazy. I'm not saying the PlayStation 2 version doesn't have that either, it just looks better on the 360 version. Of course, on the 360 version as well, you've got managers, so it's just a graphical upgrade really. But for me, the gameplay isn't really that brilliant on the 360 version. I feel like there's a lot of exploits, and I know those exploits exist on PlayStation 2. Don't get me wrong, on both versions it's very standard. You're still locked to a grid. You still have to rely on crosses and through balls to get your goals. You can't really score long shots as well, which kind of sucks. You can't really score free kicks either, at least for me anyway. I think the free kick system on both versions suck. But yeah, it's a very limited game. But aside from the graphics, the atmosphere on both of the games is really good, especially when you get to the World Cup final. They make it a massive occasion. You got like this broadcast package sort of thing where you got the music blaring in the background. I think the track is called Do You Feel Scared by Howard Jones. That's a great song. There are some good songs on the 2006 FIFA World Cup game. The menus are slightly different on 2006 World Cup 360 and PlayStation 2. You still got the globe, but the globe on the PS2 version is like grayed out sort of thing, and then on the 360 version it's like a actual satellite globe sort of thing. Both versions look cool in their own right, but I think that obviously the Xbox 360 version does look a little better in my opinion. Other little noteworthy things I like to say about both versions is that it has a challenge mode. I think this was the first time that featured in a tournament game, an international tournament game, where you could do the challenges and earn points and stuff like that. I don't think the points really counted for much unless you were buying stuff in the catalogue, the in-game catalogue of both games, and also on 360 it was worth an achievement as well. Those challenges were pretty good. Some of them were pretty hard. Both games on each console feature the actual World Cup mode, which is really cool. It's got nations that you'd never think that you'd be able to play as before on FIFA. This was like sort of the time when I was like getting into international football, and it was just such a joy to see like teams like Fiji on the game, and Tahiti, and like Liberia and stuff like that, teams that you never really heard of back when you were at school and stuff like that. And then obviously you get to play as them on FIFA, like a football game sort of thing. So much fun playing against your friends, you know, with random nations. But yeah, no, the tournament mode is pretty good. Obviously, it's got your standard World Cup mode where you start from the World Cup group stages. And it also has qualifying as well. The qualification process is really cool on 2006. However, in some regions, it does suffer from lack of teams. The teams on 2006, there aren't all of them. So a lot of the teams are missing. So regions such as Asia, for example, don't have their proper qualifying campaign. You just sort of do 6 games, and if you win enough games, you go through to the World Cup. Obviously, Asia is much more fleshed out than that. So a few of the qualifying regions do suffer from that. But overall, I think that both versions of the game are like solid, but the 2006 World Cup game on PlayStation 2 is slightly better. So I'm going to put these games in different places. So 2006 on PlayStation 2 will go into 7 out of 10, and the Xbox 360 version will go 6 out of 10. The graphics don't mean everything for me personally. Yes, they do look nice, and it does look nice and polished, but the gameplay suffers as a result. So moving on to Euro 2008 now, another Euro game, and this was one where I was so hyped for. When you go into the game, you are met with a little cutscene where it shows all the previous winners of the Euros, which I think is a nice touch. And then it tries to replicate the campaign of the 2008 Euro campaign. And of course, it even shows the moment where Croatia knocked out England, which again is an iconic moment from that time. I forgot to say 2006 also has a cutscene like that at the start of its game. But yeah, moving back to 2008, 2008 is very good. It has all the nations that you could possibly have back in 2008. Obviously, there are some absentees from the modern day, like Kosovo and Gibraltar, for example. But I think they did a very good job including all the nations again, including Montenegro as well, who didn't actually participate in the qualifying process for 2008 Euros, but EA put them in anyway as a half-star team. You can also use all these nations in a full qualifying Euro campaign. The qualification campaign on the Euro game is pretty much perfect in my opinion. There's no glitches, there's no sort of shortcut sort of thing. It's a proper campaign. Also, this game does offer the challenge mode, which featured on 2006 FIFA World Cup. These challenges are, again, still very hard, especially considering that the way Euro 2008 plays, and I'll get onto that in a minute. But yeah, those challenges are quite challenging, as they should be. They feature some really good commentary from the commentary team, some different commentary. I think that's a nice touch. I've always liked that. That happens again on the 2006 game as well, where you do a scenario and you can either redo history or rewrite history. This game also let you play Captain Your Country as well, a mode where you take a professional footballer, you just solely play as them, and you basically try and do the qualifying process just with one player, and you try and become the captain of your said nation. I think it's a pretty cool mode. It can sometimes feel a little bit slow to play these kind of Be a Pro modes, especially if you're like, you know, if you don't play as a striker, in my opinion, you don't see that much action on these modes. So they're not my favorite modes, but I do appreciate them. How does the game play? Now the game, again, unfortunately, is still a very stiff game to play. Again, it still feels like you're locked to a grid. I personally struggle on the hardest difficulties of the game. When I'm doing qualification campaigns on my YouTube channel, a lot of the time I have failed, even with bigger nations, because I cannot break down the smaller nations. And a lot of the time you'll see that the smaller nations can upset the bigger nations a lot of the time, even when you're playing as a big nation. I've lost against teams like San Marino, Moldova, Malta, you name it. I've lost against every single team on this game, just purely because I cannot break them down. And that again is just down to the stiff movement of the game. It does let you score different goals, of course, but again, because of the stiff nature, you still have to grind your behind off for those goals, you know what I mean? You really have to work for it. Crosses are still quite overpowered on this game. So yeah, the gameplay for me is a little bit mixed. It's just a little bit sort of clunky. The players, like the animations and stuff like that, aren't super smooth. It feels like, yeah, just clunky, really. That's probably the best word I can describe for it. So moving on to the graphics and stuff like that, the graphics are not too bad. Again, they're similar to 2006, but everybody sort of looks like, every character model looks like a caveman. I've always noticed this about 2008 and FIFA 08 as well. All the characters are big and bulky. Even like Luka Modric, who is actually like quite thin in real life, has a big bulky character model. It's really strange. You know, you got your managers on the sideline. You got more managers than usual on the sidelines for different teams, even teams that you wouldn't expect, such as Northern Ireland, for example. Yeah, I think that's cool. The crowd is pretty good as well. Not in terms of the actual game, but when you go into like a celebration and stuff like that, you can see like fully 3D like hands flying around and scarves and stuff like that. Yeah, the Euro 2008 game for me, even though I do love playing it, sometimes it can be a frustrating experience. It still looks good and it does play okay, but the frustration factor is what's going to knock it down my list for me. So for me, I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10. I can't really give it a 7, but I don't want to give it a 6 either. So I'm going to give it a 6.5 out of 10. Alright then, moving on to perhaps my favourite game of them all. You know what's coming, right? I may as well just say it right now that it's going to be like almost a 10. It's FIFA World Cup 2010 South Africa, the game which I've done the most runs on. I just love the fact that when they brought it out, they said there was 200 nations on there. And there's 200 nations on there. And you can do full qualifying campaigns with all those nations. Again, the qualification process of some of the regions aren't quite full qualifying campaigns because like a lot of the preliminary rounds aren't on the game, but still it's almost perfect. 200 nations, full qualifying campaigns every single time is just so much fun for me. Personally, for a World Cup game, that is the standard that we need to have if ever there's going to be another World Cup game. A new World Cup game has to live up to the standard of FIFA World Cup South Africa. The World Cup mode, the actual World Cup mode itself is brilliant. I think that you know, it's almost perfect. My only complaint would be that in some regions you don't get the preliminary rounds of said qualifiers in some regions. But they still did a good job with it, and they still did well with the resources they had to make it fun and make it entertaining. A lot of my runs, you'll sometimes see smaller teams qualify for the World Cup as well, which is just awesome. You can check out group stages from other confederations and stuff like that. That is a feature that didn't exist on 2006 World Cup. You couldn't check the other groups of other confederations, but on 2010 you could, so you could see what's happening around the world. The menus of 2010 World Cup are quite nice. I love the globe system, and they improved on the 2006 globe system by, instead of just flicking through the nations, you can actually sort of like free roam around the globe if you use the stick, and you can find out the teams like facts and stuff like that. It will have like facts about the nation's like population, the rival nation of said nation as well. I think that is just class, honestly. Again, if we have another World Cup game, we need to have that. And of course, going on to the music as well, I cannot forget the music of 2010. The music is brilliant on the game, absolutely brilliant. I didn't touch on the Euro 2008 game. Euro 2008 has a lot of like indie bands and stuff like that. 2010 has a good mixture of African music and also like Western music as well, which is brilliant. My favorite songs on the game are Waving Flag, of course, which is obviously the obvious choice, and Strong Will Continue as well. That's a brilliant song. Going into the gameplay of 2010 FIFA World Cup, for me, the gameplay is almost perfect. Like, 2010 era of FIFA just works. It's got the perfect mix of arcade, football, and realism as well. I think every time I've jumped on 2010, the gameplay somehow surprises me each time. Finesse shots are beautiful on the game. Long shots are beautiful as well. Like, they really have some good power in them. Crossing is good and fair as well, especially on the higher difficulties. The passing is crisp, it's fast, it's beautiful. It's honestly one of the best World Cup games out there in terms of gameplay, in my opinion. 2010 era of FIFA is probably one of the golden eras of EA Sports. Of course, I played a game on Legendary as well, and Legendary offers the best experience possible, in my opinion, for the 2010 game. It's the only game I actually play on Legendary in terms of sports games, and it gives me a really good, fair, competitive challenge. Moving on to the game modes of 2010, of course, you still had your online World Cup mode as well, again, which I failed to touch on in 2008. 2008 had the online tournament mode. It basically was just, you start off in the round of 16 and you work your way towards the final, and if you win the final online, then, you know, it's bragging rights, isn't it? You get achievements and stuff like that saying that you've done it. Same again on 2010 World Cup, but I believe you started in the group stage. I think you started in the group stage. You still had Captain Your Country, of course, which also featured in the Euro 2008 game. Captain Your Country on 2010 World Cup is a bit more fleshed out. You got like more managerial demands and stuff like that. You play B games as well, international B games, to work your way up to the top. It really feels like you're actually playing for something. And also the World Cup 2010 mode featured the challenge mode as well, and the challenges, again, just like Euro 2008, are very fun to do. I think EA did very well with those challenges, because the thing that makes the challenges is that obviously it's no different from the actual game apart from the objectives you've got to complete, but there are some really good objectives on the 2010 one. There was one where you have to overturn a 4-0 or 5-0 deficit when you're playing against Bolivia away from home with Argentina. It has special commentary and everything. It's class. It's even got the moment as well where Republic of Ireland got knocked out by France in controversial fashion thanks to Thierry Henry's handball, and the commentary team are going ballistic in the special commentary. I think that's just brilliant. Like, 2010 has some of the best scenarios, and because of the gameplay as well, it's not too challenging. So lastly, I wanted to touch on atmosphere and graphics and everything like that on the 2010 FIFA World Cup game. I think the graphics are still beautiful to this day. Like, yes, a few people might say, well, some of the players look the same, you know, especially for the smaller nations and stuff like that, but like, the atmosphere of the whole entire tournament, even when you're doing friendly matches or qualification campaigns, qualifying campaigns, you know, you'll go to like different stadiums, and every different stadium will have a different backdrop depending on where you're going. For example, like, you go to the Caribbean, you've got like Caribbean backdrops. When you go to North America, like actual like America, you've got a big dome stadium. You go to South America and you can see like slums in the background and stuff like that on the hills and stuff. In Asia, you got the big cities like in Hong Kong. In Africa, they're basically played in like a field in the middle of nowhere, and then you got like a city in the background. It's unbelievable just how good it is when, in terms of atmosphere. The atmosphere, it really makes you feel like you're traveling across the world to these different countries and playing in these environments away from home or even at home. You still got some stadiums as well that exist in real life, such as Wembley Stadium and the Olympia Stadium as well. You know, obviously for the bigger teams, those stadiums will be in there, and the atmosphere and stuff like that. The managers are there fully licensed managers from the time. They react to stuff that's happening on the pitch, just like in Euro 2008, but I think in 2010 it's a lot better. Even sometimes the crowd, when depending on what qualifying region you're playing in, reacts differently and they sound differently as well. Even when you go into South Africa, the actual World Cup, you got the vuvuzelas droning on in the background. You know, I personally love it, but a lot of people I've spoken to don't like it and turn it off. Also, to touch on, when you're actually at the World Cup, you've got fully 3D fans in the crowd who also react to what's going on the pitch, and they're dressed differently depending on where they're from and stuff like that. I think it's just absolutely amazing attention to detail. But yeah, 2010 FIFA World Cup is an absolute blast to play even today. I love it so much. It's one of my favorites. Now, I'm not going to give it a 10 out of 10. The reason why I'm not going to give it a 10 out of 10 is because that'll be extremely biased. Instead, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. The only thing that lets this game down is that sometimes when you're doing a basic run, like a basic run from the actual World Cups, the game can glitch out, and teams that get eliminated get thrown back into the tournament. I really hate that glitch. I don't know if it happens for anyone else, but for me it happens like quite often. Sometimes I've been eliminated when I finish top of the group, and it just sucks when you want to do a basic run, especially on stream. So that's why it goes down a point in my estimation. The rest of it though is perfect. And also a side note, that does not happen when you're qualifying. When you're actually doing a qualification round, it doesn't glitch, but for some reason it glitches when you do it from the final 32. Very strange, but it is what it is, I guess. It's just nothing can be perfect. That's why that game gets a 9 out of 10. Now, the 2012 Euro DLC is a bit of an odd one, because a few people would say that it's like not good enough, but for me, I actually think it's quite a good DLC. Again, it's quite limited to what it offers. You've got your kickoff mode, of course, which has all the teams from Europe back at the time. Most of these teams, again, are unlicensed, which does suck. Like, some of them are like obviously unlicensed. That's a massive problem with the Euro games, is that a lot of the teams, especially back in the early Euro games, were unlicensed, such as the Netherlands, for example. That doesn't happen on 2012 as much, but some of the smaller teams like Wales and Belarus are unlicensed. Like, for example, there's no like Aaron Ramsey or Gareth Bale. It's like Gareth Belf or something like that, which is just really, it kind of sucks. But I do understand it from a licensing sort of standpoint. The 2012 Euro DLC is good though. It offers a not full qualifying campaign. It only offers the sort of actual tournament itself, which is fine because you can still edit it and put in the teams that you want. However, it does offer expedition mode, which is a brilliant mode, which I have done a whole series of on the channel before, where you basically pick your captain, you pick like a bunch of randoms to go into your team, your created team, and you beat each nation and take a player from each nation every time you win. And each group has like different teams, and you have to beat each team to advance to the next team, and basically then you get to play the biggest team in the group, and it's laid out like roads sort of thing, like roads around Europe. It's a fun mode. It's a really cool idea. It's kind of like a little bit of a mixture of like Ultimate Team and the FIFA Street formula, where like if you beat a team you take their player sort of thing. It's kind of like that. It's kind of a mixture of both in that game mode. So I guess that does serve in a way as a qualification campaign, but it doesn't at the same time, if you get what I mean. Now, going on to gameplay of Euro 2012, the gameplay of Euro 2012 is good. It falls in between like sort of like the middle. Obviously it will fall in the middle of 2014 and 2010, because I can see elements of both when I play that game, and I don't know how I feel about it. Sometimes it's okay, and sometimes it's very frustrating to play. Again, I play this on a higher difficulty, and you can you can basically control the ball as much as you want, but as soon as you get to the final third of your opposition's box, they will just tackle you. They'll lock down and tackle you, and then there's nothing you can do. Like, I find it very hard to score on this game. I think it's yeah, it's slightly awkward because, like I said, it falls in between the era of 2010 and then the new like 14 sort of thing, FIFA 14, and it's right in the middle. Like, FIFA 12 itself plays really well, but the DLC for the Euro just plays slightly differently for some reason, and I don't know why it's like that. Like, I really don't know why. It just feels a lot different. Like, when you do a career mode on FIFA 12, it's very quick and very arcadey, but when you do the Euro DLC, it's quite slow and sluggish. Aside from all the other stuff they added, there's really no atmosphere at all. There's no managers on the sideline as far as I can tell. There's like no crowd chants or anything like that. They really took a step backwards when they started doing these DLCs, especially for like the Euro one here. It's definitely a step backwards in terms of atmosphere. Like, the crowd there's no like cutscenes or anything like that. Like, when you score, it's just a basic celebration. I understand that maybe they were trying to like cut down on that sort of stuff, but that's part of the charm of a World Cup game or a Euro game. You need to have atmosphere, and for some reason the 2012 game just doesn't have any atmosphere. It just plays like FIFA 12, like the base game, but with international teams, and that's the most disappointing part about it. It has no atmosphere. The rest of it's cool, like you can play as different teams and you know, all the non-qualified teams and stuff like that, but there's just no atmosphere. And all the stadiums are generic as well, and yeah, there's just really nothing special about it. It's just very generic. So for me personally, if I'm going to have to rate this DLC, I'm going to put it down as a 5.5 out of 10. Now, 5.5 I think is very fair because it is generic, there is no atmosphere and stuff like that, and the gameplay suffers a little bit. The only thing that's keeping this game from being above average is the fact that it has the expedition mode, which is what we haven't seen in a World Cup game or a Euro game. It was very innovative for its time and it was very fun. So that is my opinion on the Euro 2012 DLC. Alright then, moving on now to the World Cup 2014 game for Xbox 360. There is an Xbox One version which I'll touch on a little bit later, but let's just go through the actual World Cup game for 2014. Now, again, this game has a good intro when you load it up. It's a very, very good cutscene. It gets you hyped up for the game. 2014 Brazil is a very pretty game in the menus. Like, I like the color scheme of like the green and the light yellow sort of thing. Very carnival sort of atmosphere sort of thing for the menus of 2014. The music's good as well. I think the music is very, very nice on the game. Not quite as iconic as 2010's, but still some bangers in there. Now, 2014 offers a little bit more than its predecessors in terms of gameplay modes and stuff. Of course, you've still got your kickoff mode and you've got your World Cup mode, which again features a full qualifying campaign, but the qualification process is probably one of the most fleshed out qualifying processes I've seen in a World Cup game to date. 2014 is so good at doing a full qualifying process, because when you go into the game, you pick your nation, you pick if you want a real or a custom campaign, and then you go straight into it. You have to play the friendly matches and you have to play the training modes to make your team better, and every single win or loss impacts your team negatively or positively. 2010 does do that with the form system, but it's not quite as fleshed out as 2014, and depending on what difficulty you're playing on, the form system of 2014 can be very, very like generous, if you're playing on a lower difficulty, or it can be very, very punishing if you're playing on a higher difficulty. For example, I've done campaigns where I've gone unbeaten, got green form in every single column for every player. You come up against a nation like, I don't know, like an average nation, and then they beat you 1-0 and your form will just tank. It is crazy how unforgiving it is. But yeah, the qualifying process of 2014 is just amazing. Like, you've got the preliminary rounds, every single qualifying region is actually how it should be for the time of you know, the World Cup sort of thing in 2014. Every single qualifying region works properly, which is great. I love that. I love that about 2014. I love how sort of realistic it's trying to be. I really appreciate it. It does trump 2010 in terms of the realistic qualifying campaign. The other game modes that 2014 has to offer, aside from the full qualifying campaign, I believe it offered 2 online modes at the time. There was like a Road to Glory or something like that, where you had to win 15 matches in a row or something like that. And you got rewards based on that. I think it was like in-game rewards. I never really played that mode. Obviously, you got Captain Your Country, which again is another fleshed out mode. Very good mode for 2014. Again, it's still enjoyable to play. So let me touch on the gameplay of 2014. It has a great qualifying campaign and great modes, but does the gameplay live up to it? And to be honest, I'm a bit mixed on this. Sometimes the gameplay on 2014 is very nice. Like, sometimes you can score some beautiful goals. Like, the physics of the game, when they work, are just so nice. So nice. You can score some absolutely beautiful shots, some absolute thunderbolts, or even some really nice finesse shots. Completely different from 2010. You know, it's you know, the physics system is, you know, when it works, it works. It is very nice. However, when it's not working, oh my god, it is just so frustrating to play. Like, I've had runs before where, you know, they've been ruined by one match where a team will just sit back, and I know that's not really part of the game. It's like more like the tactics and stuff like that of the other team, but like, you know, you'd be pressing so much, and then you know, suddenly the ball would just like pop out of like the player's feet randomly, or like, for example, they can't control it properly, which again, it does happen, but sometimes on 2014 it happens too much. Sometimes you can brush up against the player on 2014 and get a red card for it. Its physics system is very, very good and bad. It's like yin and yang sort of thing, you know what I mean? When it works, it's brilliant. When it doesn't, it's the most frustrating game in the world. I understand that, you know, it's trying to be realistic with its physics engine sort of thing. It's a lot different from 2010, but sometimes it can be a very frustrating experience. So moving on now to the atmosphere of 2014 and the stadiums and stuff like that. Now, you would think that the 2014 game would elaborate on 2010 and make it better. Unfortunately, that's not always the case. So when you're doing a qualifying campaign, a lot of the stadiums are the same. You get that big dome stadium a lot of the time in most of your runs, unless you're playing in Europe, which is very, very disappointing, because 2010 had different vistas and different backgrounds. Of course, 2014 is just like, you know, you're playing in Asia, oh, it's that dome stadium again, you know, the generic dome stadium. It's so annoying. Like, it does kind of break the immersion a little bit. Like, some of the smaller teams have cool stadiums and stuff like that, but again, for some reason as well, like the graphics, they do look good as well, but I actually think, personally for me, that 2014 is a slight downgrade in terms of graphics for a World Cup game. Like, you think 2010 looks beautiful even today. Sometimes 2014 though can look rough, especially in certain stadiums and certain lighting and stuff like that. Like, don't get me wrong, like, you can still go on to the instant replay bit and it'll still look beautiful because the game is like at a standstill sort of thing. But sometimes when you're playing, some of the stadiums have different like camera angles and stuff like that, There's one stadium which has like a really high camera angle because like the stadium is like a box stadium sort of thing, and it's like the worst thing in the world because like you can't really play the game properly. It sucks when it's like that. But however, 2014, it does have the biggest roster of World Cup nations I've ever seen. There are a couple of nations that are missing from 2010, such as Mauritania and I believe Mauritius and the Seychelles. Wait, no, just Mauritius I think are not on that game. But they did add other nations such as Laos and the Philippines in there, and Sao Tome and Principe as well, which is pretty cool, right? Because obviously we never got to play as those nations before. So the only other thing I wanted to touch on really with 2014 was the difficulty. World class, professional, legendary, all those difficulties are unbelievably difficult. For some reason the AI can just control the ball so well compared to you. You have to really meticulously play so well in order to even get a goal sometimes, especially on world class and legendary. You know, it's such a difficult game and a very punishing game as well. I have already done a sole video on 2014 that you can check out on the channel if you want. But yeah, no, this is just sort of like a brief summary. 2014, it lacks the atmosphere for me, even in the World Cup sort of thing. Like, yes, it still looks good, and you know, when you go to the World Cup and you're doing the qualification stages, you still got like the flags in the background and stuff like that, but there's like, you know, the cutscenes don't look as good because I believe the graphics aren't as good as 2010. But it does offer a full qualifying experience, which 2010 doesn't offer. So for me personally, 2014, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. 8 out of 10 seems fair. It's not as good as 2010 for the reasons I've stated. However, it's still a solid World Cup game when it works properly. Like when you get everything like going and the physics engine is working properly, and you're playing in the correct stadiums and stuff like that, it's beautiful. It is still a solid game, and like I said, the full qualifying experience is the best any World Cup game has to offer. Now, they did make a version for the Xbox One, which I'll quickly touch on. So the Xbox One had a DLC for FIFA 14, which I have played on the channel quite a long time ago. Basically, it only offers the 32 teams that qualified in kickoff mode. It had its own ultimate team mode as well, where you could get cards from the different World Cup nations that qualified, and you can build a separate team on ultimate team to do that. Unfortunately, the servers are shut down now, so I can't show you much of that. And yeah, there was no full tournament though for the actual Xbox One version, which is a shame, but the Xbox One version does look beautiful. I won't rate it, I won't put a rating on it, but it does look good because it's got the modern graphics and everything. But it's just a shame that they didn't elaborate on it and make an actual World Cup mode for that as well. So moving on quickly to PES 2016, I never played 2016 PES, I never played the Euro mode. But from what I've heard from my fans of the channel is that it's not a brilliant mode. They said that it's quite bare bones. It's got all the qualified teams, I think, in there, but they said it's quite bare bones. I mean, I can only look up footage on YouTube, and yeah, PES is in an entirely different game to FIFA. I don't really play it that often. But yeah, no, a lot of my fans just say it's quite bare bones and it wasn't that great. But again, I can't really put a rating on it because I never played it, so I apologise. Alright then, moving on to the first bit of World Cup DLC. This is when EA stopped making World Cup games and made World Cup DLCs. This time it's for the 2018 FIFA World Cup. At the time, we were all disappointed not to get a full game. And I think if I did this review back then, I would have given this DLC a lower of a rating. However, today, going back to it and playing it, it's actually quite a solid DLC. Like, I know I'll probably get a lot of stick for this, but it's actually quite a solid DLC. FIFA 18, for me personally, was a great game. Like, it played really well. It's like basically how FIFA should be. Like, FIFA 17, 18 and 19 is exactly how I want FIFA to play. Like, that kind of era of FIFA sort of thing. I know I said 2010 was like the golden era, but I think 2017, 18 and 19 was also another mini golden era as well for EA Sports, just on how the game plays. Yeah, like the gameplay is good. It's good. It's quite solid on 2018 World Cup. The mode as well itself is quite solid. Okay, you haven't got a full qualifying campaign. That sucks. That does suck. But if you look into it as a DLC, it still looks good because you've got the modern graphics on there. Like I said, graphics aren't everything, but this was like the first World Cup game that had proper like updated graphics, like, you know, HD, almost like 4K like sort of graphics. We didn't get all the nations either. However, the pool of nations that you did get on 2018 were actually pretty decent. So you got the 32 nations that qualified for Russia, and you also got a nice pool of teams that didn't qualify as well. And even though there's no smaller teams in there, I know a lot of people like to do underdog runs, there's still a nice pool of teams that you can use on that game, and you can still put them in the tournament, and you can still randomize the tournament and still have fun with it. It's still great. Like I said, touching back on the gameplay, you can score beautiful goals on there. You can make excellent plays. The commentary is pretty good. The atmosphere is good as well for a DLC. It's much better than the Euro DLC that I just commented on, the 2012 Euro DLC. You had all the stadiums from the 2018 World Cup in there as well. It's a good DLC in my opinion. That might be a little bit of a hot take considering that most of my fans don't like the DLCs of the World Cup. I still think it's good. Like, it's not perfect, don't get me wrong, they could have done a lot more with it, but it's still good. You know, you've got atmosphere in terms of like, you still got like the cutaways to the 3D fans. Some of the managers are there as well, most notably the Brazilian managers there, fully licensed. The Russian managers there, fully licensed. You got fully licensed teams that are in the DLC. There's none that are not licensed at all, which I think is great. I think for what they did with that DLC, I think it's still good. I think it's a good solid DLC. It also had an ultimate team mode as well, where you could like build another ultimate team aside from your you know, main ultimate team and make a ridiculous World Cup squad. I remember playing that mode during the World Cup, and icons were so easy to get on that mode. So that's all I can really say about the 2018 DLC, because that's all it really had to offer. But I think it's a solid DLC. Graphics are good, gameplay is good because it's FIFA 18, and yeah, it's solid for what it is. You know, again, might be a hot take, but I think it's solid, and for that reason I'm gonna give it a 7 out of 10 for a DLC. It's missing a lot of modes and it's missing a lot of teams, however it scratches that itch for a modern World Cup experience. Okay, so briefly we're just going to touch on the women's 2019 DLC, the World Cup DLC for FIFA 19. Again, like, is this even really a DLC? Like, back in 2019, EA said that they wanted to put a real emphasis and a real sort of spotlight on women's football. I remember that was their whole thing, right? Like, oh, women's football, like, you know, we're going to put it in the game, and, you know, if you don't like it, tough, it's in the game sort of thing, and we're going to highlight it and stuff like that. And I thought that was brilliant. But then the Women's World Cup DLC came out. Well, I put DLC in quotation marks, and it's really just nothing. It's not really anything at all. Basically what they did was they just put the final of the Women's World Cup in there, which is appreciated, but it's not a whole tournament mode. If you want a tournament mode on the women's DLC, you have to do your own custom tournament, which again doesn't have the actual trophy or the final or anything like that. It just has a generic trophy, so that kind of sucks. There are more added teams on there, but again, it's only a small pool of teams. You've got like your main Women's World Cup squads there, and then you've got teams like Thailand and Jamaica and stuff like that. It is appreciated, but it's not really enough for me personally. It just felt like they just threw it in just to say, here you go, like, we forgot about this tournament, but here you go, here's something. Yeah, as for gameplay, 2019 FIFA, like I said about 2018 FIFA, I love the gameplay of it. The mode of women's football in 2019 plays different from the men's football. You might say I'm wrong, but it actually does play different. Even if the players are rated 90 or anything like that, it still plays a lot slower, and I do appreciate that. The graphics are good as well. I mean, most of the women's footballers look like their counterparts in real life. The atmosphere isn't really there compared to the 2018 DLC. Like, there's no like cutaways to the fans, there's no managers, it's all generic sort of thing, apart from if you play the final. Of course, you get like the cutscene of them lifting the trophy and stuff like that, but all the teams are pretty much, as far as I know at the time, they were fully licensed, and you know, that's pretty cool, right? I mean, if you're into doing custom tournament modes and stuff like that, I mean, I guess it'll be fun, but the fact that they put the final separate from the actual tournament mode and not made a tournament mode is just lazy for me. So despite the fact that the game looks good and it plays good, I'm going to give it a 4 out of 10 for this one. The 2019 women's DLC, just, you know, they tried to say that they cared about women's football, but then they gave you that. Like, come on, it's the Women's World Cup. It's supposed to be one of the grandest achievements in women's football. Moving on to Euro 2020, the DLC for PES, I think it was like Euro 2021 / Euro or PES 2020. So this was when Konami still had the license for the Euros, considering that they did it in 2016 and I never played it. I actually got to play it on 2020 because Xbox put the PES games on Game Pass, so I got to play a few runs on there, and well, I mean, yeah, it's not a bad mode. I mean, it's PES. I mean, PES is a lot different to FIFA. From what I can remember, the gameplay was quite good. It's supposed to be more realistic. I had some good runs on there. The difficulty is, well, I mean, it was hard. It was a hard game, especially on the harder difficulties. Of course, it's supposed to be like that. But it's just, for me, like, again, there was just no atmosphere with the game. Like, yes, you had some of the actual stadiums that happened, and you had the broadcast packages for Euro 2020, much appreciated. You had new nations such as Gibraltar and Kosovo to play with as well. You had all the nations there. You could do a full tournament mode. Again, very cool. No qualifying campaign, no, which kind of sucks. But yeah, again, no atmosphere really. It was all very generic. It just felt like they sort of got that mode and put it into the game and didn't add anything new to it, sort of thing. However, I do appreciate the celebrations on PES. They are much different to FIFA. Yeah, no, I can't really remember too much about Euro 2020 DLC. So again, I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. A very average experience. Alright then, we're nearly at the end of this list, and this is a very long video, but yeah, the World Cup 2022 DLC, Qatar World Cup in 2022. Now, this tournament was a good tournament when it happened in real life, but does the DLC replicate that tournament? And unfortunately, it does not for me. It does not. World Cup 2022 DLC is quite possibly, in this modern era, one of the laziest DLCs I've ever played. Like, for me personally, FIFA 23, because this is what it came out on FIFA 23, because it was the back end of 2022, the World Cup, so that's how it worked. Otherwise, it would have been on FIFA 22. But for me, FIFA 23, even though I do enjoy FIFA 23, the gameplay of FIFA 23 is so slidey. I hate the slidey nature of the new football games. Apart from FC 26, FC 25, FC 24, FIFA 23, 22, all those games are so slidey. For some reason, they're just like, you know, it's impossible to defend against bigger teams because they'll just knock it about really quickly and they'll smash it in. That's not a criticism of the World Cup DLC itself, that's more the game. But anyway, the World Cup DLC, it only featured like 2 or 3 of the actual stadiums in Qatar. Yeah, not good enough. Obviously, it featured all the qualified nations. That is just the bare minimum at this stage. But the real kicker is that the non-qualified teams, most of them are all European. There's no African non-qualified teams like Nigeria or Mali that came close in real life to qualifying. There's no Asian teams. There's no Oceania team. Oh, actually, no, there is. There's New Zealand, but there's no other Oceania teams. There's no South American teams. None at all. Like in the non-qualifying bit, and there's no CONCACAF ones either. It's all European, which again is just like, that's lame for me. I want to play as the other nations as well. I don't want to keep playing as European teams. Like, you know, it's not a good selection of teams. And for me, even though like the game looks pretty, it's probably like one of the best looking games, like because it's like got 4K and everything like that. For me, the gameplay just doesn't play well. It's just like, you know, one match you can smash your opponent like 6-0, and then the other time you'll come up against like a team and they will not give you the ball. It's very slidey. You tackle someone and the ball just pings back to them. Like that, this era of FIFA, like 23, FC24, FC25, has to be one of the worst eras of FIFA that I've played. Like, I still semi-enjoy it when I'm playing career mode and stuff like that, but I'd rather play the older FIFAs. There's no real atmosphere in there as well. It's just basically the base game's animation with, like, a few, like, teams, fans holding the flags and stuff like that. There are pre-match cutscenes as well, which I do appreciate, but they're just a little bit bland and they lack the sort of charm of 2010's atmosphere and 2014's atmosphere. So for that reason, the 2022 DLC is going to get a 3 out of 10 for me. It's just not good enough. It's just not good enough. It's one of the laziest DLCs I've seen in a while, and you know, I hope that this trend of DLCs just stops. I really just want a World Cup game, but who knows? EA don't have the license anymore, so who will it be? Alright, 2 more now to add to this list. This is a very long video and I do apologise for that. The Women's 2023 World Cup DLC for the same game, FIFA 23. Again, commenting on the gameplay again, I already said it, it's slidey, it's horrible, I don't like it, okay? But the Women's World Cup DLC actually is kind of cool, because not because what EA did, more because of how the tournament played out in real life, like the qualifiers. You got brand new nations in there like Haiti and the Philippines that you haven't seen in any of the women's games before, which is just cool. All the women's models look pretty good, like especially the really famous ones. They look fantastic. Of course they're going to be, because they're all 4K. Again, you can play as the full tournament mode, and you can play captain your country as well, just like you can do on the men's DLC, which I forgot to mention, but you can do that on the women's DLC as well. You can make your own female footballer and captain your nation to glory. It's not quite as fleshed out as the previous modes of, you know, like 2010 and stuff like that, but it's still a nice mode to have. I've already commented on the gameplay and you know, the tournament mode itself. The tournament mode though, there's one thing that really annoys me about the tournament mode. You cannot shuffle the group stages. We live in, well, at the time we lived in 2023, 2024, like sort of thing, approaching 2024. We couldn't even shuffle the tournament. Like, for me personally, when I was making content on it, it was just like brain dead sort of thing, you know, playing the same groups over and over and over again. You know, it got really boring very quickly. I cannot believe that EA do not let you shuffle the tournament on that mode. That is a big kick in the face, really, for me. And also as well, I forgot to touch on that when you get eliminated in these tournaments, especially in the new ones, they don't simulate to the end. What's all that about? I've commented on it so many times before, but they do not simulate to the end. I want to see who wins the tournament, you know? Like, you can do that in all the games up until 2014, and then they just stopped it. Why? Why? It's just laziness, isn't it? But yeah, no, the women's DLC, again, it does represent women's football a lot better than the 2019 DLC. However, it's still not a good DLC. There's lack of atmosphere again for a World Cup mode, and again, the gameplay of FIFA 23 isn't amazing either, and the fact that you can't shuffle the tournament is just a big kicker as well. And there's no non-qualified teams in that DLC either, so again, that sucks. So I'm gonna have to give that DLC, again, I'll give it a 4 out of 10, just slightly better than the men's DLC, only because, well, you know, you got some more interesting teams to play as. And finally, we have Euro 2024 for FC 24. And this was the most recent DLC that came out for us in terms of tournament mode. Now, FC24, I don't mind it as much as the previous FIFAs that are next generation sort of thing. However, it still has a slidey nature. Sometimes, again, you get those matches where, you know, you'll win like 5-0, and then other matches you won't even get a touch of the ball against a massive team like Germany, for example, because they're just too good. They'll score within like 5 minutes of the game, and the game will end up being like 6-5 or something like that. It's just totally unrealistic. It happens all the time on that Euro DLC, and also the other ones like 2022 and 23 women's one. Like, the gameplay isn't horrific, but it's still very annoying. Atmosphere wise, again, it's a little on the stale side, but I do appreciate that Euro 2024 DLC has most of the stadiums that happened in real life. Of course, this tournament was played in Germany, so you have most of the stadiums already on the game, which is good. Of course, it's got the Euro 2024 like watermarks everywhere and stuff like that, so at least it feels like you're playing in the tournament. The teams, again, you got all the qualified nations, and you do have some non-qualified nations. It would have been nice of them to put more interesting non-qualified nations in there, or at least like ones that are more relevant sort of thing. You know, I don't want to play as like Northern Ireland all the time as a non-qualified team. It's nice, don't get me wrong, but why not just throw in a couple of random ones, like, I don't know, Montenegro, or I don't know, Lithuania, or someone like that. I know that they randomly added Israel in there, and then they took them out, maybe because of backlash, I don't know. So that was a strange decision, but yeah. No, the Euro DLC, there's not much to say on it. It's, again, just like FC24. It plays the same, it looks the same, there's just obviously a Euro coat over it. I do appreciate all the teams are fully licensed, and even most teams have their manager on that game, including England. You'll see Gareth Southgate on the sideline, which is a nice touch. But yeah, that doesn't really save this game from being mediocre. I'm gonna rate it a 5 out of 10. Again, I don't really like FC24's gameplay that much. The graphics are nice, don't get me wrong. There's no other like extra modes apart from the online mode, and again, captain your country, but again, that's very watered down. Again, it gets a 5 out of 10 for me. So yeah, the only games really that were outstanding in terms of the tournament modes were 2010 and 2014, which again, I'm sure you guys were expecting that, but yeah, they are my favorites. 2006 and the Euro 2008 games are just behind them, and of course the 2012 Euro DLC is pretty decent as well. I hope I've covered every single game now, I think, that I've played. I'm sorry that I couldn't cover 2002, 1998 and 2016. Like, again, I haven't played them, so yeah, I hope that you guys enjoyed this long video today. I hope I can trim this video down to an acceptable watch time, but yeah, that is my whole list of World Cup games. Did you agree or did you not agree with me? Let me know in the comments down below, and I really hope that you guys enjoyed this one today. If you did, then please give it a like and subscribe. Keep it loco as always, and I'll see you again for the next video.